Herd. We are the Sisterhood of the Travel and Bantha. We are your hosts, Rexy
and Denise, and we are recording with special support from Councilmember Mark Collier,
broadcasting from a galaxy far, far away.
Pew pew!
Hey, Herd. Yeah, we're here, and we are in a dark, spooky-looking land today because we're here to make another stop on our Twin Suns tour. And
yes, I'm excited.
To find us at this dark, spooky spot, we found a really rad friend, Tyler. Say hello, Tyler.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Tyler.
We
silly, right?
Say it with us, everybody. We had some technical difficulties.
I feel like you have to insert the static, old school static beep right here.
Coming soon. It's a sticker coming soon.
Yeah, yeah. It really is.
It actually is. It's on our merch list. Yeah.
Because it's something we say quite frequently.
Because, there's gremlins in all of our shit. So.
I mean, I say that literally in conversation, not online. Like, sorry, technical difficulties.
Yes. So, we are here. Let's see, where have we stopped? We have stopped in Dathomir. We haven't been in Dathomir yet for this tour, so that's pretty cool. It's not even something that we've talked a lot about since we rebooted the show.
I'd say Dathomir was featured in Clone Wars?
Yeah.
Night Sisters?
Was it Rebels too?
Rebels too, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's actually some really cool episodes. I think they touched on it the most whenever they brought Darth Maul back in his little storyline. I think is where we got the most of it. We got the Night Sisters, which are
the Night
dope.
Sisters.
I'm sorry. Like, it was cool in Boba Fett where, the Rancor and whatnot. But the Night Sisters have been riding Rancors for ever. So, but they're cool.
They don't have to be.
People. I love how they imprint. And Boba was Baby Rancor's daddy.
Yes.
Everybody's heart broke when we learned.
That was so great. So, Tyler, can you tell us why you picked this planet for our stop on our tour?
Well, actually, it's way more connected, I guess, than I realized. Was Rancors. Rancors are pretty amazing to me. Even as a kid, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing." And then we might get to it here in a bit, but Rancors have been pretty impactful in my life story, and so I thought it was really cool when we got to go to Rancor home planet, because they're found a couple places, but they're really only found on Dathomir as far as the Rancors like we know and love.
Okay.
If you talk EU type world, that's we don't talk about Bruno.
Did you know that there's a few different types of Rancors? Like there's jungle Rancors, there's like we talked about in one of our creature episodes that there's like 4 different categories of Rancors.
Bro, that was like 12 years ago.
12 years ago.
I mean, at least a couple weeks.
A couple months. No, I have it in my notes. I am bringing up the notes because I wrote that.
She's like, I have the receipts, bitch. Hold on.
Creatures. We are Rancors.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of Rancors out in the world, or I should say in the universe. But we just don't get them. Like they're just not in any content we get.
So there's jungle, there's rage, there's shadow, and then your average Rancor. And do you know what a group of Rancors is called?
No, what?
It's called a crash of Rancors.
A crash of Rancors.
It's your turn to Freudian slip. Oh, yeah. No, Rancors are pretty cool. So I was pretty excited whenever we got content from them, and then obviously, and they connected that back to Boba Fett. And I gotta say, in Boba Fett, when we learned about the imprinting and stuff, for me, it was not about the moment with Boba Fett. It was about I always butcher his name, Malakili, the Rancor
from Return of the Jedi.
Yes, because I was like, oh my gosh, you know they
his baby.
Yeah, in kind of the interviews and stuff like that, we find out that and we do see him cry, but we find out that was like supposed to be a really meaningful moment when he loses his baby, and I never really got that. I was like, oh, he's sad because he's out of a job, boo-hoo. And then we realized that like no, they were family.
And none of us knew that until we got that bit of lore. And then I think it just broke everybody's heart because you're thinking about that like he had to watch it die, like, and probably know this was going to happen at some point.
Yeah, can we talk about like that for just a second? Like Favreau and Filoni taking moments we experienced and then making us all of a sudden re-experience them in a whole different kind of way. I mean, there were so many moments. I assume I can like spoiler anything because this is a Star Wars show, right? So, but like at the end of Clone Wars, I always talk about the end of the series because.
Oh, wait, Denise.
I have not watched. It's all of it's been spoiled. I haven't watched it in like 3 months. So.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're like, yeah, spoilers are fine. Oh wait, never mind. The host hasn't seen it.
I'm not worried about it.
All right.
Well, I won't spoil it all then, but the point is specifically the last few minutes, completely retconned the way I looked at all the original trilogy.
I agree 1000%.
Like in just those few moments, I like my life flashed before my eyes, except for it was my Star Wars life flashed before my eyes, and I was like, wow, it changed everything. And that's kind of how, on a small scale, how learning about Rancor's imprinting made me feel. I was like, oh my gosh. The whole weight of everything that had happened kind of landed in that moment.
And it definitely hits differently now. Watching like when it came back to theater for the 40th anniversary, like that scene up on the screen, because I've never seen it on like a big screen, and then knowing now the history, everything hits just a little bit differently as we're expanding, especially now with like Andor before the original trilogy, now afterwards. I love that we're getting more of these little details to make these small things that much more significant to the story. So. Yeah,
I feel like we got the Star Wars world and the Star Wars story, but now we're getting the Star Wars emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
We get the everyday person and their role in all of this and how they feel, and we get, more than just a snippet of that character or a piece of that character. We get to dive in and find out this is actually what they were doing during this battle or this takeover, or
how it affects like the everyday person, not just the people in the Empire or the rebels, but like your average citizens who are being arrested for being a tourist. Like,
I'm just a tourist.
Will forever be my favorite thing.
Tyler has not seen that one.
No, Andor is the one that I haven't done. It was one of those I started. I'm one of the many that said the first 3 episodes I watched them and couldn't get through them, and I didn't apparently make it to the good part. But I've never come back around to it.
It's Denise's favorite show. She had to drag me through the first 4 episodes, and then I was like, okay, I'm here.
Yeah, but it's not that I don't want to watch it. To be very clear, I love everything Star Wars. However, my docket is pretty full, and so once I had like written something off and put it on the shelf, coming back to something, it moved to the bottom of the list. It's just the way it works.
That's how Clone Wars is for me.
Yeah, yeah, and I won't hold that against you. I might make fun of you, but
I'm gonna make fun of you, and I'm gonna keep dragging you through it.
And that's what we always say. There's literally something for everybody in Star Wars. You don't have to like every single thing.
I always talk about Jar Jar Binks for that, and I know I don't want to get you canceled for saying Jar Jar Binks, but
we talk about Jar Jar all the time.
We talk about him all the time and how much we love him.
Well, but I mean, think about it. All the hate that there is for him, but also like he was the icon for the younger generation when those came out.
Yes.
And I always point out that he was the comedic relief, good, bad, or ugly. He was the comedic relief. So if you removed that, holy crap, those would have been dry. I mean, they were not the greatest thing in the world to begin with. And then if you took any kind of comedic relief out, it would have been horrifyingly dry.
And they're attempting to capture a new generation of viewers and fans. They don't want it to be like, oh my god, this is so boring. I can't fucking.
But even like George Lucas, when he wrote the character, he's like, people are going to hate it, but it's for the kids. They're going to find him annoying, but it's for the kids. It's kind of like how 3PO and R2 were more for the kids. Jar Jar Binks was for the kids, and then it's the Poors and BB-8 are for the kids.
Right. Trying to snatch in a new, their business is to make money, and they can't make money if people aren't watching their stuff.
Right.
So I'm going to hijack our conversation and go all the way back and pretend this is the beginning of the episode, because we have a few questions we would like to ask you, because you've never been on our show before.
Go for it.
So what is your favorite Star Wars movie, show, film?
I really thought there was going to be a Monty Python quote there. I was
color, like I got, and then I was like, "You're not actually saying that."
So I 100% heard color. What my favorite? What
is your favorite color? What's your favorite Star Wars? It can be movie or show, but your cartoon. Like, what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
Yeah. Movie. That's kind of hard to say. Honestly, I might go with Solo.
So underrated.
It really is, and also from my point of view, the things that I like, it had a lot of that in it. So I enjoyed it for those reasons. Now, you can always dissect a movie 1,000 different ways, and what criteria are you using to rate a movie or whatever. But I really enjoyed Solo, and of course, the OG trilogy will always have a place in my heart. And honestly, prequels too, because it was so many years that we had nothing, and
major drought, and then all of a sudden there's some content.
Yeah, but I think overall, man, that's really hard to say, because Clone Wars, like, I'm a huge Snips Ahsoka person, and we wouldn't even have Ahsoka without Clone Wars, so there's that. And then obviously Mandalorian has just crushed it. So it's really hard to pick a favorite.
And then you have Bad Batch. Like
stop!
I will never.
I will say about Bad Batch though, like I love it so much, but it doesn't have the rewatch for me.
It does. Same here. Yeah. I tried to rewatch season 1, and it was kind of difficult, because I wanted to rewatch it before the second season came out, and I was like, I'm just going to have to force myself to remember what happened in the season.
Yeah. Like I really identified with Tech, and in fact I really love that they used Tech to kind of tackle some heady issues right on, and I appreciated that. However, it wasn't, like I said, it doesn't have the rewatchability for me. I really enjoyed it. It was great. And certainly when it was coming on, like current show, I was all in. But I haven't had the need to revisit it.
So we have a second question. Are you ready for question number 2?
I am now.
Okay. I'm glad you took that second to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
Who is, or what is your favorite Star Wars character? It doesn't have to be a sentient. It could be a creature. It could be like a ship, a planet, just your favorite thing. in Star Wars?
Yeah. I'll give you a simple answer, but it's not really the answer. The simple answer is Boba Fett, because he was really. It's so funny. He had such little screen time. Originally, anyways, such little screen time. But man, he was so impactful to me as a kid, for so many reasons. And then on top of that, I got to hang out with Bullock a number of times, and him and his wife were just precious. And so, that added on top of everything. And then we get Boba Fett, the series, and it just piled all of that on top of it for me. It was like he is he's not always does good things, but he's a good man, and I really really appreciated that. So as far as a single character, I'd probably have to pick Boba Fett, especially when we got his interaction with the Tuskens. Oh my god, amazing!
Yes. Oh my god.
So I probably single character Boba Fett, but at large, it would be the aliens, just any kind of alien creature, non-human creature, because I have a fabrication background, and from day one, when I first saw aliens, and I was like, I want to be that. I want to be a creature suit actor. I want to make those things. I want to be involved, and so the aliens are kind of a huge love for me at large, but single character would be Boba Fett.
Very cool. And then we have
one more
we
question?
have a third. We have a third. They just don't get the part 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Our costumer friends get a part 2.
Oh, yeah. I'm a wannabe costumer. I have so many costumes
all that free time
on my list. But it's never happened. Fun fact: one of my eventually costumes, first of all, is the Tusken Chieftain. That's actually probably my first. But then also Glaucus from Solo, which nobody knows who that is. He's the giant eyeball guy standing in the background of the sabacc tables. But so one day I'll be a costumer, but not today.
Are you trying to find a picture of that, Rex?
I was, but if you want to find a picture and throw it on the screen while I ask part 3. So we have a third question for you. And this is such a broad question, so just pull out of the air the thing that you want to share. But we would like to know, what's your favorite Star Wars memory? And what we mean by that is, like, what's the thing, when you think Star Wars, what's the thing that you go to?
Oh, it just got deep.
Like memory-wise. Not like, I think of that plant or whatever. It's like, what is the time that you think of when you think Star Wars?
Wow. It's definitely like, tote my action figures around everywhere I go kind of thing. Star Wars makes me feel that all over again every time. Makes me feel like a kid, in all the good ways. But favorite memory of Star Wars, I think oddly, because of some of the things that I've done, some of my favorite Star Wars memories actually aren't Star Wars content. They're just because of Star Wars or related to Star Wars. Like, for example, talking about Rancors, to bring Rancors back up, I met Rexy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rexy, the Rancor. Yeah, Rexy is really great. I love Rexy a lot. I've had the privilege to be really involved with Rexy. Oh, I should have missed opportunity. I should have been wearing my Rexy shirt, because Rexy's pretty special to me, because I was at a convention, and Rexy was there, and Rexy was pretty new, and I was like, oh man. So I started chatting up the guy who brought Rexy, who happened to be the guy who made Rexy. Oh yeah, there's Glaucus.
He's fucking cool looking.
He's huge, and there's not a whole lot of lore on him, but what you do find out is he's kind of interesting. He's got a breathing apparatus, and he comes from, in my brain, my head canon is that they're the Star Wars version of the Beholder from D&D, because they're basically just eyeballs that built a body frame to walk around.
I can dig it.
But so anyway, what I was saying was I met the guy who made Rexy, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is what I've always wanted to do. I want to make this kind of stuff. And he's like, that's awesome. They are based out of Florida, and I happen to not be living in Florida, very far away from Florida. And he's like, well, whatever. If you ever want a job, hit me up. And I was like, that's funny. You're in Florida. Well, long story short, some crazy, once-in-a-lifetime things happened, and I found myself in need of a job, and I looked at my partner, and I was like, do you think maybe he was serious? And sure enough, I called him up, I think it was like a Thursday, and I was like, hey, can I work for you? And he's like, yeah, so can you be here on Monday? And I was like, pardon me. So I made some calls around, and I worked it out. I was there on Monday, and the rest was history. I worked there for a number of years. It was amazing. I worked there while we were making Lemmy the Lugga Beast.
Good job.
I've been waiting for you to say that because I wanted to see that face on Denise. Denise has a picture in her Mando on Lemmy, and it's one of her favorite things ever. And that face happens every time you bring it up. Every time anybody talks about Lemmy, she does that, and it makes me happy.
Lemmy is pretty special for a lot of reasons, because it did what I love doing. It took an obscure alien character and made it lovable to people who would have never have thought twice about something that got 30 seconds of screen time or less. And we had a lot of fun. The gentleman who was doing the sculpting, he was working on Tito, which Titos are the creatures that ride those Lugga beasts out in, Jakku. And he was sculpting the Tito, and Lucasfilm was working really closely to make sure. So we got shots of the actual Tito and everything to make sure it was exactly correct, which was really fun. That was my first foray into working, or at least participating in Lucasfilm stuff. And then while I worked there, I had the privilege of working on or participating in other Lucasfilm projects, which were a lot of fun. And some happen, some don't, but just being involved, I remember, so huge circle to get to probably one of my favorite memories, is they were doing the Star Wars theme park while I was working there. And I heard that they were going to do this. This was really hush-hush. I was really excited. And I was like, we've got to be involved. Well, we got the call, and they sent over some files. It had a code name at the time, which was fun. It was a reference to another sci-fi franchise, which was funny. But it had a code name at the time, and I was just giddy. I was like beside myself. I'm looking at Star Wars stuff from Disney, the code name. It was just, I was excited. And they were like, okay, cool. We like some of the stuff you've pitched. We want to meet with you. And so myself and a couple of the other people, the owners of the company, loaded up in a car, and we drove to meet them. And we drive to the address, and it was the craziest thing. We drive there, and it's sketchy, okay? It's an abandoned industrial park, right? There's graffiti on everything. The shutters are blown out. It's like a movie, okay? It looks like an abandoned, not so great area. Well, we get there, and we're like, this is the place. It definitely is the place. There's this huge banner that's flopping down in front of the building that says for lease, which I come to find out is a a bogus number they had set up. But so we go and we knock on the door. All the lights are off. It looks abandoned, and there's this little like foyer room that you can see into that's completely empty. And the light flips on, and our contact meets us, comes outside, and he's like, "Okay." And we come into this room, and we have to put all of our, wallet, keys, phone, everything in a dish, sign a bunch of papers, and then they open the door, and wow, it was just for a prop maker, it was the most crazy moment as a Star Wars fan to open the door and there's like OG props everywhere. There's just all kinds of stuff everywhere. And by the way, prop makers like to collect things. We like to make ourselves souvenirs. And so the people who are working on the project, they're in-house Imagineers, have worked on other projects. So there's like Harry Potter stuff everywhere, and there's just all kinds of stuff everywhere that I'm just kind of drooling, but I'm really professional. I've got to close this deal, so I'm like exploding on the inside. And so anyways, we get there and they give us the tour. It was really cool. They were trying to pay homage to some of the things that at Disney World they were having to tear down in order to build the world. So like, for example, they took the race cars, and while we were there, they were in the middle of dissecting those race cars to make kids' speeder bikes, which if you've been to Batu, you'll see this big rack in Florida of speeder bikes. It's like blue and gold, and they're really cool looking, but they're made out of the cars from the ride that had to be shut down. So
fucking rad.
Yeah, so they were doing some cool stuff. We chat them up like that, and then we were like, okay, let's go talk. And there's a couple of projects that we were talking to them about, but the one that I was most excited about was building some droids, particularly a probe droid, because I've always loved probe droids. And so they were talking about this, and they're like, let's go talk. So we go to their meeting room, and it was that moment. All the other stuff was cool, but it was that moment that I cried inside that I didn't have my phone with me. I was like, I probably would have broken NDA to take a picture of this. It was the original Death Star set. The big panel that they blew up, where they do the trench run.
Yeah.
They turned that into the wall of their meeting room.
That's so rad.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
I was a little excited. So, but I didn't have my phone, so I guess they lucked out. I don't know where it ended up now, but it was really cool. And of course, it was cool to look around and confirm with my own eyes that Star Wars absolutely is made out of trash. I mean, the amount of gutter pipe and drain hoses and
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And we got to do some fun stuff. My big contribution was they were talking about, so there's this droid shop on Batu, and there's a bunch of abandoned droids and things like that. But they were like, the owner is not a very nice guy, and these they're kind of dissected droids and things like that. And I said, oh yeah, so we need to put restraining bolts on them. That would make a lot of sense. And they were like, oh what? And I was like, yeah, restraining bolt. It's this little thing it's like it's a nod to some not great stuff. But yeah, they were huge Star Wars fans, but nobody ever thought about a restraining bolt. So that was my big contribution with these Disney execs sitting in the room, and I was like, stop the meeting. You got to put a restraining bolt on there. And they were like, you're right.
Very cool.
So yeah, it was pretty funny, but that's probably my favorite memory of Star Wars related was just this abandoned warehouse. They were super black ops, right? Like there were no cars parked anywhere. Everything was hidden, and you drive up and you're like, this is totally not the right place. No, it's the right place. It's this huge warehouse inside where there was a bunch of cool stuff.
Like fucking Willy Wonka. It was like nothing. And then you swing the gates open wide. And
it's like Men in Black when he goes in and there's just a guy sitting there.
I know. And then behind it, it's like, oh, what?
Oh, yeah. It was wild. And then it just kept getting more and more crazy. Like, first you drive up, it's this crazy place, and then the little room that's completely empty, you're like, this is weird. Then they take your stuff and you're like, oh, this is really weird. You sign your life away, it's weirder, and then you open it up and it's like Willy Wonka, right? It's like the TARDIS from Doctor Who, right? There's all this stuff crammed inside there, and my head could barely handle it.
That is such a cool experience. Like, to get to be immersed in those props, in that history. Like, you were standing in the middle of cinematic history. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was a cool moment.
It goes to show too, like, how far like Disney or Lucasfilms will go to keep things under wraps. Like, and I'm glad that they do, because it keeps that magic alive, I think, especially when you're experiencing something for the first time or seeing it up on the screen. Like, we don't get all these leaks, and I love that. I love being surprised, and I love I just love being surprised.
Yeah, corporate espionage is a real concern, especially since between Disney and Universal actual employees, like, we were a contractor, of course. But their actual employees, they swap back and forth all the time. Mm-hmm. People work for Disney for a few years, and they work for Universal for a few years, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And obviously, they take everything they know with them. And so there's this weird rivalry, but cooperation between the two. Like, it would be bad for either one if stuff kept getting out. So they take that really seriously. Really seriously, like, to the extent that when we get documents, any paper documents have to be locked away. Like, if you get a file and you print that file, you have to keep that under lock and key. You have to keep the key in certain scenarios. If you get sent a file, it has to be encrypted in a certain way and treated a certain way on certain machines. It can't just be access to everybody. Okay. It's pretty wild. And then inside your shop, because we'd have multiple things going at any given time, so you have to have a secure area of your shop that can't be seen by cameras or et cetera. It's kind of wild, but it's fun at the same time, because you're like, I'm working on something cool,
You're like this little mad scientist working on this super secret project, and that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Disney's a roller coaster to work for, as you might imagine. But it was my little Star Wars loving heart had a heyday with it.
That is very cool. I really want to know, and I don't know what you're allowed to tell us, what you can't. So you say what you can, and don't say what you can't. But like, do you have any just like bizarre, like, this was a bizarre thing that happened while I was working on a project, or this was a really strange thing, and I don't know what it was, but this is a thing that happened?
I mean, in the fabrication world, there's always weird requests, just in that job, not necessarily Star Wars related, but you get all these weird requests. One of the things that I got a request for a museum, because that's the main market, right, is there's movie and cinema, right? Mm-hmm. But then there's the theme parks that want immersive environments, and then museums want immersive environments, right, for their exhibits and things. And I got a request from a museum to make dog poop, a lot of it.
A lot of it.
And not just dog poop. They were very specific. They said it needed to be Afghani dog poop. And I don't know, like Afghanistan. So I don't.
Different over there?
That still to this. Wondering. I worked on the project, and still to this day, I don't know. I made dog poop. That's but yes. So you get some weird requests like that. We had a request that was from a NSFW museum, because there's museums for that, and they wanted us to make a rock climbing wall that was made out of let your mind wander. Yeah, so there's a lot of really weird requests you get when you're a fabricator, a custom fabricator.
Wait.
Yeah, that motion. Yeah, that's how you climb the wall. Yeah, good job. You figured it out.
Wall. Whole wall.
Yeah.
The whole wall.
Yep, the whole rock climbing wall. Like, it's always exciting when you get those requests in because you have to talk about it in a team meeting, right? Like, you have to take this serious. This is serious business here. And you're like, okay, so what would we make it out of? Who's gonna carve it? It's all of these things. Like, oh yeah, and by the way, the sculptor does actually need reference material. So whose computer are we gonna use for that? Yeah, it's all of these silly things. And of course, projects like that, you can pretty quickly decide if you're going to do it or not. We chose not to. But there's so many of those silly requests, and you never know. That's the beauty of it, and especially in like practical effects for movies, you really never know what you're going to get. I got a request last year for a film. It hasn't been released yet, but it's a cryptid film, and it was a request for a badly taxidermied animal that had like human teeth and some things like that, and so you just kind of really never know what's going to come up, and I love that. I love that, and also sometimes you scratch your head and you're like, what did you do at work today? Well, I don't know how to tell you this.
I put some human teeth in a dead raccoon I found.
Yeah, basically. It's pretty wild, but I love it.
Did you take that project?
Do what?
Did you take that project? Is that something we can see when it comes out?
No, actually. So what happened with that was the studio ghosted us. We actually were in the middle of it all. And this happens. This is honestly why we shied away from film a lot. And this is something that prop fabricators, if you want to make this a living doing this, is why like museums and theme parks tend to be. Museums are the best. Theme parks are great second. Are what you want to aim for, because film, man, there are rewrites every single day, and two things happen. That means that the thing that you worked on or were preparing to work on gets scratched, right? Or vice versa. You weren't prepared for something, and then now you have to have it like by the end of the day, or you've got 30 minutes. The talent is waiting. You're like, so there's a little bit of chaos there, and so we tended to shy away from that. Plus, TV especially never has a budget. I mean, these Star Wars shows, even, which is Disney, and it's a huge franchise and everything else, like by cinema standards, they don't have any budget. And so that's why it's made out of trash, is because these prop masters are like, hey, I need Coruscant. Okay, we're shooting on Coruscant, which is like this, hyper big city and all this stuff, and you've got $100. Go make it work, like.
$100 make it work.
Yeah, you got to raid a lot of dumpsters.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we ended up with old ice cream machines and strainers.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, especially OG trilogy. Like now Star Wars the prop masters do it like as homage to the original, because it's there's a reverence for those who came before you, right? But originally Lucas had no money, right? Like he was like, I want to do this by myself. The whole issue of him trying to get somebody to even do the show, and then he had no money, so he was making things out of. I think I heard one time that some of the models were made out of like styrofoam cups and to-go canisters.
Oh wow! He found a lot of it himself for the movie.
Yeah, yes. I mean, obviously not the entire thing, but yeah, he had nobody, because nobody believed that a space cowboy opera. Yeah, it was not.
Versus,
but
if you look at digital effects, that's computer. You're not having to go out and physically source these items and figure out a way to put them together.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that
make them on the computer, but then you don't end up with strainers and.
Yeah. That's one of the ways that CGI and practical effects refers to anything that's like physical, tangible in the real world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then digital effects refers to things that are digital.
Right.
And so that's one of the beautiful ways that they can kind of marry and work well together is digital effects can do things that we can't, right? Like physically we cannot do. Digital makes it possible. Even though there's very little that can't be done digitally, or practically, sometimes it's just safer, cheaper, whatever, or it's got to be done after the fact, right? Because we changed some things. There's so many times where things changed in the script, and then we didn't shoot anything different, right? There wasn't any different footage, so you just have to kind of chop it up and add things to make it work. So that's
physical props.
Oh yeah, that's.
I do too.
I love them.
That's one of the comments that people make about like Boba Fett or Mandalorian is if it feels like old school Star Wars. That's because they're filming it the same way. Not exactly.
Same with the sequels. They used a lot more physical props and sets rather than all the CGI like the prequels, and you can feel the difference.
One of my favorite things that was a blending of practical effects and digital effects was, and I forget what it was. I think it was season 1 of Mandalorian, somewhere in there. They created a soundstage to film in that was this huge curved LED wall. You might have seen it. Yeah. And then they put everything in front of it was real.
Yeah.
But they used that LED wall as everything that's in the background. So you could have this vast, expansive city behind you or whatever, and not have to put it in post. You could actually film practical effects in front of it. And that's really similar to how they did OG Star Wars was they'd have this picture in the background, right? This picture,
painting, right?
Whether it was a matte painting or whatever it was, right? So whether it was like cellophane with stuff painted on it or whatever, it'd be way in the background, and then we'd have things actually filmed in front of it. And I love that. I'm still blown away when you look at the matte paintings of the stormtroopers, the legions of stormtroopers. It's a famous painting. It goes around in a bunch of viral videos, but somebody painted all of those stormtroopers. And I mean, of course I was a kid, but even still, I look at it in the movie and I'm like,
it's impressive.
No.
So this has been a blast, and we did not expect the episode to one, be as engaging and run as long as it did.
Yes.
Everybody kind of went into it thinking we were going to last about 30-ish minutes.
That did not happen.
Nope.
We all talked a lot, which is fine. So
we had a blast.
120% had a blast. So here is part 2.
We hope so much that you guys enjoy part 2 as much as we enjoyed part 1 and part 2. Anyway, we had a blast. Please enjoy.
Thank you. We had a blast. From our galaxy to yours.
May the force be with you.
Always.
May the force be with you.
Pew pew. Oh, we didn't get a picture.